Nobody said it. Not the FBI, not the Pima County Sheriff, not a single news anchor, not one of the thousands of voices that have spent more than 100 days covering every detail of this case. For over 100 days, the public version of this story stayed inside one lane. Nancy Guthrie is missing. The investigation is active. Do not give up hope. We are getting closer. That is what law enforcement said. That is what the media repeated. And that is what most people following this case held on to. Until this week. This week, a retired FBI supervisory special agent, a woman who spent 22 years working violent crimes inside the Bureau, looked at the evidence in this case and said something that nobody in any official or semi-official capacity had been willing to say out loud.
109 days. That is how long this case stayed inside one lane. Nancy Guthrie is missing. The investigation is active. Do not give up hope. That is what law enforcement said. That is what every news anchor repeated. And that is what you held on to. If you have been following this case at all, nobody broke from it. Not the FBI, not the Pima County Sheriff, not a single credentialed voice in any official capacity. Until this week, her name is Jennifer Coffindaffer. She spent 22 years as a supervisory special agent inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation. She worked violent crimes. She worked kidnappings. She has sat inside case rooms that looked exactly like the one working this investigation right now. She knows what evidence means, and she knows what it costs to say what she said. I don't think Nancy made it. 3 words, from someone who does not say things like that without a reason. And here is your first promise. By the time this video ends, you will understand exactly why a 22-year FBI veteran reached that conclusion. Not as a guess, not as a feeling, but as a trained read of physical evidence. Here is your second promise. You will understand who she believes is actually responsible, and it is not who most people are focused on. If you want every update on this case the moment it breaks, subscribe right now and hit that bell. Because what comes next is the hardest and most important breakdown of this investigation yet. Stay with us. The porch is where this case actually begins, not as a symbol, as a forensic document. And what that document says is not what most people think. You need to know the exact timeline first, because the timeline is everything. Nancy Guthrie arrived home at 9:48 in the evening on January 31st. Her garage door closed at 9:50. Her smart home system confirmed it. She was inside. She was safe. She had every reason to believe she would wake up the next morning. Then the house went quiet. At 1:47 in the morning, her doorbell camera went dark. Not from a power outage. A masked, gloved individual disabled it deliberately, stuffing vegetation over the lens. At 2:12, an interior motion sensor fired and classified a presence. No video saved. The file either corrupted or never existed. At 2:28, Nancy's pacemaker application disconnected from her phone. From camera disabled to pacemaker silent, 41 minutes total. Inside that window sits a 16-minute gap from 2:12 to 2:28 that nobody has publicly explained. Now the porch. When Nancy's family arrived around noon on February 1st, law enforcement found blood drops on the front steps. Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed through DNA that blood belonged to Nancy Guthrie. The internet saw that and concluded savage violence. Coffindaffer pushed back. Here is the detail that changes everything. Nancy was on blood thinners, anticoagulant medication, a minor scrape, a hard grab, a fall against a railing. Any of those produce visible blood on stone for someone in her condition. But Coffindaffer went further. She identified something specific. She called the blood expirated. Not aspirated, expirated. Aspirated blood enters the airway from outside. Expirated blood comes from inside the body, coughed or breathed out. Fine, directional, unmistakable to a trained investigator. Whatever happened on that porch caused internal trauma. Retired FBI profiler Jim Clementi reviewed the trail and added this. Where the drops stop, Nancy was picked up and carried. His professional belief, she was unconscious or barely conscious. when she left those steps, but Coffindaffer says she was alive, and she has proof. To understand what those 16 minutes contained, you need to understand what the plan was supposed to be. Because this was not chaos. This was a business operation, and it had a very specific name. You have probably never heard the term wrench attack. Most people haven't, but you need to understand it, because Coffindaffer believes it explains everything about what happened to Nancy Guthrie. A wrench attack is an organized criminal operation. Wealthy targets, cryptocurrency assets, physical force used to extract what hacking cannot. You cannot break into a crypto wallet without the password, but you can take someone who knows it. These networks are massive. In 2023, more than $1.25 billion moved globally in crypto ransoms. In 2024, $892 million. This is not a fringe theory. This is one of the fastest-growing forms of organized crime on Earth. Savannah Guthrie and her husband Michael Feldman carry an estimated combined net worth of $45 million. High profile, high wealth. Exactly the profile these networks research and target. Now here is what Coffindaffer believes this specific operation looked like. 5 elements, each one verified by documented cases. 1. A puppet mask designed the operation remotely, never near the scene, never touchable. 2. A low-level recruit. Coffindaffer calls him a mope, was handed tools, instructions, and a communication device. 3. That recruit used radio communication, not a cell phone, which is exactly why FBI geofencing found nothing. 4. The plan called for a short-term rental, likely an Airbnb, within the estimated 3,000 to 5,000 active properties within 100 miles of Nancy's home. 5. The target was supposed to be subdued quickly, held briefly, and exchanged for a Bitcoin transfer. Clean, quick, profitable. Watch the footage of porch guy, wrong angle holster, reflective backpack strips, flashlight held in his mouth, vegetation stuffed against a camera lens. This is not a sophisticated criminal. This is someone who raised his hand for a job he did not fully understand. And here is what he almost certainly did not know. Nancy Guthrie had a pacemaker, blood thinners, a heart operating at its absolute limit. The people who designed this operation knew Savannah's net worth down to the dollar. So why didn't they know about Nancy's heart? Leave your theory in the comments. Because here is the thing about the ransom notes. Someone kept sending them long after Coffindaffer believes the operation was already over. And what those notes actually say tells a completely different story than the one you were given. The first note arrived at Cold TV, Tucson's CBS affiliate, on February 2nd. One day after Nancy disappeared, Bitcoin demanded 2 deadlines set, February 5th, February 9th, both passed, nothing. Then more notes came. Multiple emails, 3 different media servers. The FBI has spent 112 days trying to trace the origin of those communications. They have found nothing. Porch guy cannot do that. A man who stuffed a branch into a camera lens cannot send 6 untraceable communications across 3 servers without leaving a digital footprint. That is the handler, the puppet master, operating from a distance with technical expertise porch guy was never given. Coffindaffer's read on those notes is specific. She believes the first 2 were real, genuine demands, real deadlines, a real belief that Savannah Guthrie would pay to get her mother back. After those deadlines passed, the real operation went silent. The subsequent notes? Noise, opportunistic scammers piling onto a high-profile case. It happens every time. Why did the real operation go silent? Because you cannot demand proof of life you cannot provide. Subscribe right now. The DNA results from Quantico and the Bitcoin wallet trace are both active leads, and we will cover every development the moment it breaks. Now here is the detail that should stop you cold. There is $1.2 million sitting unclaimed on this case. That amount of money historically produces informants, almost without exception. Nobody has talked. Coffindaffer has raised the possibility that Porch Guy himself is no longer alive. In organized networks of this scale, a failed operation leaves 2 loose ends. the victim, and the mope who can identify the people above him. Either nobody knows enough to collect that reward, or the one person who knows the most is no longer in a position to collect anything. Which do you believe? Because here is what every organized criminal network eventually forgets. The science does not care how sophisticated you are. It just keeps getting better. And right now, it is getting better faster than anyone expected. Here is what is sitting in a federal laboratory in Quantico right now. A mixed DNA sample recovered from inside Nancy's home. More than 2 contributors. Sheriff Nanos confirmed it. Current forensic technology can separate 2 contributors from a single sample. 3 or more, the technology does not yet exist to read it fully, but it is coming. Coffindaffer said it directly. Separating 3+ contributor profiles from mixed samples is the fastest developing area in forensic DNA right now. When that technology arrives, whoever left biological material inside Nancy Guthrie's home on the night of January 31st will be identified completely. The same genetic genealogy technology that caught the Golden State Killer after 40 years is already running on evidence from this case. Former Detective Robbie Meyer said it plainly. The suspect's name is already inside the 50,000 tips sitting in a Tucson database. Buried, waiting for the right connection. Nancy took her hearing aids out every night. She was deaf to what was coming for her. She fought anyway. Her blood on those steps is not just evidence of what happened to her. It is evidence of who she was. What do you believe happened in those 16 minutes? Tell us below. Subscribe if this case matters to you. Share this video. And if you know anything at all, call 1-800-CALL-FBI. The reward is $1.2 million. It is real. It is unclaimed. And the Guthrie family is still asking.